Hello there. Hi, everyone. Welcome to PrestoCon December 2021 edition. Very excited to be here. Girish will join in just a minute. It's been a fantastic putting this event together. Lots of different CFPs from lots of different parts of the world, as well as different companies, different projects. And we're very excited to put this event together for everyone here. Girish, are you able to jump on? In the meanwhile, I will go and get my screen share started. So since I'm the first speaker, I'm going to go ahead and hope Girish doesn't have any technical difficulties. We're still in this virtual world where we're trying out these interesting new systems. So let's get going. Today, we want to talk about how to unlock the value of open data lakes with Presto. Girish, as Patricia introduced, is the chair of the Presto Foundation, and he will be co-presenting with me. Let's get started. First off, PrestoCon has speakers from all over. Lots of interesting sessions today. I'm very excited about them. Ahana, Alluxio, AWS, ByteDance. They recently introduced to the world that they run on Presto for their analytics. Databricks, Intel, Intuit, Meta, Passion Bytes, Privacera, SAP, lots of great sessions here, Tencent, Twitter, and Uber. So we have a packed day here with lots of events. Now, taking a step back into the data lake analytics itself, we often say that technology doesn't necessarily repeat exactly, but it rhymes. If you look back at the 80s, we had federated databases back then. The MacLeod Heimbigner paper came out 85. We had enterprise companies like Composite that were founded in 2000. But then the data warehouses happened. And the world was moving from, in the world of data, was moving from OLTP to data warehouses in the 90s. And the star schema essentially became the sacred, was the cornerstone of data warehouses. Over time, as more and more data got generated, different types of data got generated, the enterprises, especially internet companies, looked for something different. And that's where the Google file system paper first came out, 2003. MapReduce, Spark. Data sources started to evolve. There were a lot of different data sources and not one schema around it. And federation started to take a big comeback in 2010. The Dremel paper was published by Google, which turned into Drill. SQL++ came out. Presto paper came out 2019. Particle as well. But in the last few years, it has been about cloud data lakes. And a lot of data is directly ending up in data lakes. And that's where enterprise platform teams outside of the internet companies are really looking for a self-service platform that makes it easy to give them SQL analytics on object stores or on HDFS. And that's what we want to talk about. That's what Presto is. That's what we'll talk about. Traditionally, you have had the data lake, and this has been the Hadoop ecosystem built on file systems for structured, semi-structured data, mostly a lot of batch processing. With Hive, it was significantly around batch, not as interactive. It may have saved some cost over data warehouses, but this entire ecosystem was extremely complex to use and hard to maintain. And that's where the cloud data warehouses emerged. Cloud first was a big transition that was happening has happened over the last 10 years. Obviously, AWS being a big part of that. S3 it became ubiquitous. Just celebrated 15 years of S3 with trillions of objects stored in S3. But these cloud data warehouses made things simple. They had in-memory capabilities. They were fully integrated. It went back to proprietary data formats. And you start to get expensive as more and more data comes in. And that's where open source data analytics start to pick up. That's where we are today, where we're moving from terabytes of data to petabytes, exabytes of data, even at large companies like Meta. A lot of different types of information, IoT, third party, and so on. And there is a big importance given to open source and open formats. Platform teams don't want to be locked in. They want the flexibility to move from one engine to another, perhaps, try to run different types of processing on this data lake. And so there's many different things that can be done on a single data lake in parallel. It could be reporting and dashboarding, data science, in data lake transformation. And this is what we're calling open source data lakes. You know, the last few months have been very interesting. There's database engineering is cool again. TPCDS and is hard again. I mean, and this stuff is exciting because I've been in databases for over 15 years. And when you see this and the kind of innovation that's going into these industry benchmarks and the kind of value that these systems are providing, it is fantastic to see. But when the open source community looks at these charts, they want to see another column that's next to it. It's great to see Databricks and Snowflake, and Databricks has published a different, Snowflake published a different benchmark, and the database wars are kind of on again. But the open source community wants an open source engine to be as good or better in this for data warehouse use cases on the data lake. And that's what our journey for Presto has been about and will be about this year and over the years to come. And so what we hear from the community, our users, our customers, the internet companies, planet scale companies, is open matters. And why does open matters? What does open actually mean? Open source, of course, everyone knows about it. You get value. It's crowdsourced. You get value from the best technical engineers, the best experts in the business, and even a two-person company can benefit from that innovation. But open formats matter. This means that you can move over from one engine to another engine, one type of processing to another, without migrating your data, without being locked into a single system. Open interfaces matter. SQL is ubiquitous. It's a lingua franca of pretty much all interactive structured analytics. JDBC, ODBC, these interfaces matter. And everyone wants to have open interfaces as it relates with analytics. And finally, open cloud. Open cloud means running on any cloud, multi-cloud. Presto is built to be easy. It's easy to containerize. It can be run on any cloud. We have community users running on all clouds. And so that is why users, platform teams are looking at open source data lakes and open source data lake analytics. So what we're seeing is there's a pretty big either a transition or a migration, in some cases augmentation of the data warehouse with a data lake. Data lakes, some of this data comes in raw format, gets processed into Parquet ORC most often, and then you have different kinds of processing that are run on top. Presto being the de facto standard for interactive and ad hoc querying. We see obviously ML, AI, TensorFlow, PyTorch, and others. Spark being still used largely for transformation. And this is what we define as the open source data lake stack. This is what is deployed at Meta, at Uber and Twitter. And this is what the rest of the conference is about. You'll learn a lot more about each of these areas in a lot more depth, and the journey that many companies and many platform teams have gone to move to this open model. With that, Girish, are you online yet?
Yes, Dipti. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you. So over to you, and share with us how open source projects have evolved. We talked about this a little bit the last time around, and tell us what you're excited about and the innovations that are part of changing this game.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful introduction, Deepti. I think that's a good introduction to the entire space. So I want to change the topic a little bit and talk about open source projects in general. So typical open source projects go through about 4 phases of development. Usually there is a seed of idea that comes because there is some gap in existing technologies, some new kind of problems come in, and folks think, well, maybe we need to develop a new set of tools, right? And Presto came along in this way. There was a gap which was addressed. Then once some subset of these technologies start becoming very interesting, very popular, because a lot more people see the same kind of problems, and some subset of these tools catch on. And then as the usage grows up, the scale grows up, these tools, people invest more in making them more performant and scalable. They are finally deployed in some mission critical applications. Big companies start using them. And if lucky, a very select few of these get to this platforming stage, where basically people not just use the tool as a means to solve a specific set of problems, but actually as a platform for solving a much broader variety of problems. Let's see how this translated in the case of Presto. So around about 2013, there was an emergence of the Hadoop ecosystem, basically data stored in the Hadoop format, and a bunch of tools around that, like Hive and so forth, which allowed you to MapReduce, which allowed you to process the data. But it was a little hard to use. It was niche. The APIs were more programmatic than user friendly, and which is where Presto was developed as a way to analyze this data using SQL in an interactive fashion, right? Back to the older days of traditional RD databases. Now, a lot of people like data scientists, data analysts quickly adapted this, and they started using it, and there was a lot of adoption. And so then there was a reinvestment in scaling this up. And around 2017 to 2020, Presto really grew up as a system, and it started becoming much more of a mission critical deployment in companies like Facebook, Uber, Twitter, and so forth. Around the same time is when we also launched the Presto Linux Foundation. And now we are seeing the next phase of evolution that I was talking about, which is basically Presto is being used not just to do interactive analytics, but as a starting point for solving a whole bunch of data related problems. As we look at the various talks in this conference today, a lot of those pointers will come up in a very interesting way. Okay, so as I mentioned, Presto grew up solving traditional interactive use cases. So people have used it for a long time to build reports, build dashboards, graphs, pictorials that they can share with other folks to understand what's going on, to present, to share ideas, and so forth. Similarly, data scientists have used it to analyze data, figure out trends, patterns, and so forth. They've also used it as a federated layer. So data sitting in various silos, maybe in different environments like on-prem, cloud, and so forth. Presto is a single engine that folks have used to join, combine, and analyze these data sets. And also customer-facing apps, right? So there have been dashboards that if you want to put in front of your users, for instance, some of these have been powered by reports that Presto has generated. So we see three big classes of emerging use cases that really showcase Presto as a platform now. The first one is lakehouse analytics. So lakehouse, loosely speaking, is the concept of taking a data lake and building a transactional layer on top of it, right? So you can actually model entities instead of just append-only log type data sets. And then the second is using Presto, not just to analyze data, but also to perform data transformations, right? Traditionally, this was done using systems like Spark, as Dipti was saying, and Presto is increasingly seeing adoption here. And the third and very new and exciting area, this is where Uber has also been investing pretty heavily, is in the space of streaming analytics. So let's just do a quick tour of some of the talks that showcase these new use cases. So in the lakehouse analytics space, I think there are three main technologies that are emerging. So Apache Hudi, Delta Lake, and Iceberg. So we've had a lot of presentations around Apache Hudi during previous PrestoCon and Presto meetups. This time we are featuring very interesting talks on the other two. So there's talks about the Iceberg connector and its history, and also a talk about the Delta Lake connector that's coming into the community. The second one that I thought was really interesting was this Kafka connector. So this is something that is from Uber. We've deployed it in production at Uber. Actually, it's being used pretty heavily. So here, it was originally brought in to solve a problem, which is basically analyzing production data in Kafka. So traditionally, people have used all kinds of scripts and command line tools for this. But it was pretty amazing to see that we could just onboard the Kafka connector, make some changes to it, and then people just took to it, right? Who would want to use scripts and bash commands when you can just use SQL and Presto? But one interesting further development here is you can actually, it turns out you can actually develop SQL on this and build production pipelines that which will run in a completely different system. So at Uber, for instance, we are using this as a prototyping tool to build Flink pipelines. More about that in future talks. Another area where this has gone much further is Presto on Spark, right? So here, people are actually developing Presto pipelines to do like ETLs, right? So you design your ETL pipelines on small data sets, and then when you're happy with it, you want to productionize it. You can just use the Presto on Spark transformer, which will basically generate a Spark app from your Presto SQL. And so the beauty of this is you're doing all your development using Presto. If you want to make future changes, you can still go back to your Presto SQL, use the engine, do your development interactively, and then you can push it to production. So pretty cool stuff. Very exciting talk. So, and finally, this is the thing that really excites me as well is not only can Presto be used as a platform for different kinds of problems, but this community approach to it has shown that we can actually change Presto from inside out, right? So here we have a wonderful example of this where there are multiple teams that came together across 3 different companies which have developed this C++ worker. So the idea is that you have the Presto engine, but the heavy lifting, right? The underlying low-level data manipulations, the memory, data transfer, and so forth, they're all done by purely C++ worker, which is able to do a lot of these things more efficiently. And the best part is that the folks have developed this worker in such a way that it's reusable across different engines. So you could basically use this Prestissimo worker not just in Presto, but in Spark and so forth. So not only do you get the performance benefits, but you also get consistency of performance. So if you're moving from Presto to Presto on Spark, you'll get the exact same behavior. So all very exciting talks, and I can't wait to jump into them. But before we go in, I just wanted to give you all a quick overview of the Presto community. So the Presto community and the foundation is organized very similar to a traditional company. So we have the governing board, which is a board of directors with representatives from companies who are formal members of the foundation. So the board largely provides an oversight role. So it looks at the budget, it provides some high-level guidance, and it helps organize things like, for instance, the outreach committee, which has organized this wonderful conference and meetups and so forth. Much of the work of the foundation itself, as in a company, is done by the executive branch, which is the technical steering committee. So there are periodic, I think, bi-weekly TSC meetings now. Everyone is free to attend these meetings. You don't have to be a board member or a foundation member. You can just come and contribute. And the steering committee is the one that makes the big technical decisions in the evolution of Presto. And then finally, there's all of you folks, the end user community, and we love to work with you through these conferences and meetups and other forums as we grow as a community. So the Presto Foundation is organized around 3 main principles. We want to be open, we want to be neutral, and we want to be a united community. So we're hoping everybody can come in, participate, and work towards a common goal, which is making Presto the open source engine of choice. We have an open, transparent technical leadership and direction that is through the TSC. All meetings are open to everyone. You can go view minutes and videos of the previous TAC meetings. They're all available online. And we all come to this community and this foundation as equals. So we don't have favored companies. As you can see, lots of companies are participating today. We are all equals. We all want the same thing, which is basically building the best open source analytics engine in the industry. And that really is the mission of the foundation, which is to enable and support broad re-platforming for data platform teams, making Presto as the default engine of choice for analytics in the open source space. So with that brief introduction of the foundation, I'll hand it back to you, Deepti, to kick off PrestoCon 2021. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Girish. The community, you talked about the innovations and the game changers. Well, the fourth one there really is a big one. The C++ worker is one that everyone is really waiting for. Truly is community-driven open source when 2, 3, 4 different companies come together, work on it together, because everyone has different needs, scale, cloud, security, federation. And so we build it together, we can build it faster, and we can innovate faster for everyone. It's very exciting. The community is really waiting for that the big one. That's the big one. And that said, open source and the foundation, it truly is neutral. The other question I've gotten is, hey, there's not just Presto Talks here. There's other projects that are represented and other companies that are presenting as well. It is a foundation and it is open, and we welcome everyone. We do hope that everyone is cheering for Presto. And Presto and growing the Presto community is the focus. That is what Presto Foundation and PrestoCon is about. Lot of users using Presto today. We have great sessions, as Girish pointed out, to Delta Lake Connector, a very exciting new connector that's coming out for the Lake House, as he mentioned, and Iceberg as well. We have ByteDance talking about using Presto at scale. Excited about that session, as well as the other sessions from other communities, Apache Ranger with Privacera, Lake Formation with AWS and Amazon, and many, many others. So with that, thank you so much for being here today. We're very excited to have all of you. Looking forward to all the sessions. And as program chair for the conference, I really hope that these sessions, this content is something that you enjoy, you learn from, and keep coming back to the Presto community. Thanks, everyone. Back to you, Patricia.